just not sure that Kyler Murray is big enough. This is Tom Brady. He's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate I've got Bryan Murphy to my left, making sure everything's smooth, crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. He's the most overrated player. And there you are, the Chicago Bears with a championship defense. And Mitch, I'm sure Dancing with the Stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion, that's your bad.
You are now listening to Open Season. Your host, Billy Allen.
Welcome. It is the Open Season Show. I'm your host, Billy Allen. I'm joined by my main man, Frankie Bratica. And we are live from Seasons 52. Bryan Murphy produces the show. And we've got the phone lines open at 617-702-2542. Got a little bit of sports fat to chew on this week. It's pretty good, pretty delicious. Tom Brady makes it to his 10th, count 'em 10 Super Bowls. Oh my God. Just doesn't stop. Belichick looks better and better by the week. And Mahomes is going to meet him there. We'll see who you think is going to come out on top of that. Aaron Rodgers couldn't quite get the job done, and we'll talk about his future as well. The Utah Jazz are streaking. And obviously we have to say rest in peace to Kobe and Gianna. But first, let's get into it. Tom Brady headed to his 10th Super Bowl, coming up big against the Green Bay Packers. He did struggle a little bit in that second half with 3 picks and 7 attempts. I got to say, I was heavy on the heart pills for that. But Frankie, ultimately, what was your biggest takeaway in the game against the Packers? We'll talk a lot about the Super Bowl and what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. But what did you think, before we kind of get onto that, what did you think about the game versus the Packers? What was your biggest takeaway?
There's no football player ever and very few athletes ever that have ever instilled more confidence and been able to galvanize the people around them like Tom Brady. I mean, it's genuinely unbelievable. Personally, I always thought Belichick had this magical fairy wand, and it led to us being the least penalized teams and all this. It was really just Tom. I mean, that the belief that team has in him to throw 3 picks and 7 attempts and have that defense turn that into 2 3-and-outs, like the team has bought in completely, not to Arians, to Brady. That team is essentially the Tampa Bay TB12s, and it's working. And I've been a hater the whole time. I still to this day resent how he left New England. I'm never going to be okay with how Tom just kind of mailed it in his last 2 seasons here. But wow, what a turnaround in Tampa Bay.
You know how to grind my gears. Mailed it in? Come on.
Mailed it
in.
I
mean, they clearly did not want to build around him. They didn't want to give him any type of commitment. I mean, Bill's not shy to give himself a commitment of $20 million or $25 million or whatever he's getting paid. I mean, we could probably do a whole episode on all that, but you were talking about Bruce Arians, and I think it's funny how much credit he basically gets for letting Tom Brady run everything. Like, all the experts are like, you got to give Bruce Arians credit for letting Tom Brady be, and Bruce Arians is just like, yeah, I'm letting Tom Brady coach, and it's basically Brady doing everything, really. I mean, what is Bruce Arians actually doing? Like, they'll say, oh, another play drawn up by Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich. It's like, that Tom Brady has drawn up everything.
But don't underestimate. Look, in Denver, they didn't let Peyton Manning run his offense at first. And then they realized, wait, this is stupid. There are times when a coach will not get out of that great player's way. So at least give him credit for that. Because, hey, with the ego he has, it was a question mark whether or not Arians could get out of his own way. So at least give him credit for doing that.
Yeah, and I think that you do have to look at it. I mean, it's too bad that Tom Brady can't throw the deep ball, right? For all the people that had we're saying that Tom was a little bit too old. That pass to Scotty Miller before halftime, obviously Green Bay did nothing to defend that. They just kind of stood that as he ran flat by. Scotty Miller ran right by the defense. They weren't even playing his own defense or anything. You really got to question what they were doing, and got to question a lot of moves that Matt LaFleur made. What did you think about them refusing to have the cojones to go for it on 4th down? Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback.
I understand. Well, look, the call was dumb. Like, they should have absolutely gone for it. But here's the thing. Aaron, you need to run that on third down. Like, you could have made this a much easier decision for your coach, because 4th and goal from the 2 is a lot different from 4th and goal from the 7 or 8. I think they were on the. It was unfathomable that you didn't leave it in Aaron Rodgers' hands, but Aaron, the play before, you had so much pasture. There was so much green in front of you, and you threw it at the feet of a guy who was triple covered.
Yeah, and I think this goes into a lot that when I was looking at this game, I was kind of thinking Aaron Rodgers, yeah, he's going to do really well, and it's probably going to be tough for him to throw less than three TDs. He's probably, but I also was like, when has he really performed in this spot? I mean, this has kind of been the knock on him, and it feels like going into this week, he really didn't. He was saying things like, what is the GOAT? And he was saying things like, I don't really think that this game is going to make my career, or, however he was going to phrase it. But how do you kind of evaluate Aaron Rodgers? Such a talented arm, clearly the MVP, the runaway MVP of this season. 37, probably doesn't have the most mileage left on him, but I'd say that he's definitely got another 2-3 years of pretty damn good performance ahead of him. How do you kind of evaluate Aaron Rodgers at this stage in his career? 1 Super Bowl to obviously all these great seasons he's put up.
Loser. And I understand he's not a perennial loser, but he's a historical loser. And he's actually becoming a bigger diva than the guy that he took over. And I think he's just all around handled this wrong. The comments before the game were to create a landing pad for himself had he played poorly. Then he comes out and he plays poorly. And again, this isn't going to make or break my career. But I'll think about retirement if I lose, because I just can't handle it, because I'm that big a whiner. For a long time, Peyton Manning was more about Peyton Manning than any team that he played for. And by the end of his career, he understood how to be a team player. Sometimes you need time. Aaron's never going to change. He's 37 years old. Aaron needs it to be about Aaron, and that's not good for his team. His desire to throw it into the ground, throw it away because the play is not perfect, as opposed to extend the play. His only 2 comeback victories came from Hail Mary-ish plays where he extended it. When is he giving his wide receivers time to do that nowadays?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, how much do you put it on it, though, that he doesn't really have any – I mean, obviously he has Devontae Adams, but do you give him any type of excuse for not having the most high-octane offense around him?
No, I watched – look, in a league where it was a little bit harder to pass the ball, I watched Tom Brady get there with Jabbar Gaffney and Chad Jackson. I watched Peyton Manning win playoff games with Blair Whitehead. Look, if you're that guy – if you're the quarterback and you touch the ball 40 times in a game, 60 times in a game, you matter to wins and losses. And Aaron does not matter to wins and losses. He got the ball 3 times in the 3rd and 4th quarter with the opportunity to take the lead or tie the game. 0 for 3. He got 3 total points in such circumstances. 3 total points. When the money was on the table, you could almost bank on him to not come up with points.
Yeah, and obviously I am not a Rodgers guy at all. Just trying to honestly think of like anything you could say to kind of cushion this blow for them. Obviously, I feel like this is kind of like a Super Bowl loss for them. You see a lot of things scatter after a Super Bowl loss, and it can be hard to get back there. I think it's going to be I think a lot of pieces are going to kind of fall away from Green Bay. We actually have a clip from Aaron Rodgers himself talking about his future. He was on the Pat McAfee show, and there was a couple comments that had came out about his future. He addresses those to some degree. Let's let those ones roll.
Yesterday, and then I realized there were some things swirling around. I don't feel like I said anything that I hadn't said before. I said it the first time I talked to the media. It was more a realization, I think, that ultimately my future is not necessarily in my control, and I think that was what just kind of hit me in the moment. I was thinking about Aaron Jones and Corey Linsley and other guys we have under contract, Big Dog, guys who I don't know what their future is going to be, and myself included. Now, obviously, after the season that I had, and potentially win an MVP, and we obviously made it another good run. I don't think that there's any reason why I wouldn't be back, but look, I think there's not many absolutes, as you guys know, in this business. So to make an absolute statement about something that is not an absolute, just I didn't do it, and I guess that's why it went kind of nuts.
So I think
And what a humble guy, gets into it right away with, instead of talking about the season and all this, potentially winning an MVP and all that, it's just this guy is so hard to like. He doesn't want to think about his future right there, so we obviously will do it for him.
Naturally.
What do you think ultimately happened? It seems like he's got a pretty manageable contract. He would probably have to kind of stomp his feet to get out of Green Bay, probably put up a stink, I'm not going to play here. And, honestly, if the Pats were to try to make some type of move, you look at all these things that are happening for Tom Brady, and you have to wonder what's going on in Belichick's mind. Would they potentially make a move? There's a lot of – this year could be really one of the best quarterback markets. Last year was such a great one, and this year has got a lot of moving chairs as well. What do you think is a likely scenario for Aaron Rodgers? Does he stay in Green Bay, or does he go somewhere?
So the most likely is that he stays. I'd like to come up with a fakakta reason why that's not most likely, but that's most likely. I would love to see him here or in San Francisco. I think if he were to move, those are the places that make the most sense, given what it would require to get him and who'd be willing to give that up. I did mention before the show he's at a bad time in his contract where his number that he's getting paid is low, but his cap number is big. So he doesn't like his contract. I'm sure the Packers don't like it. His cap number is 37. He's getting paid 23. So there's reason why he would stomp his feet, why he would make this a more awkward or difficult situation for Green Bay.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see if a team like the Patriots were ultimately able to take a gamble on a guy like this. If he were to go to another team, I mean, there's so many teams that are basically a quarterback away, and so many teams that look foolish kind of in the wake of not doing anything with Tom Brady.
How bad does San Francisco look not bringing in Tom Brady? How bad does San Fran look not bringing in the GOAT?
You wanted to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. The guy can barely even stay healthy for 5
Wait a minute.
games.
I'm about to tell you why he's going to be our quarterback later, so let's not bash on him yet.
No.
But to give up on Tom Brady when you are in that window with that scheme and that coach who desperately needs to win one and get over the hump with a defense that you just traded to Forrest Buckner to try and rebuild on the fly. I mean, you have the pieces and you elected not to go for Tom Brady. What a bad decision.
Yeah, and that team was a championship with, just needing to add water, the water being Tom Brady. You brought in Jimmy Garoppolo, who couldn't even get out of the way of C.J. Beathard this year. It's just amazing. And looking back there, I mean, it's just incredible that you wouldn't. I always say, when you're that close, you have to push for it. You have to push the chips in and make that type of move. And to not have the stones to bring in Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, a guy that could have probably put up half the season that he did this year and probably would have managed that team into a decent run. There's definitely a lot of teams that look dumb. I think about the Colts and how dumb they look. They said, we won't bring in Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. We'd rather just do a 1-year deal with Phillip Rivers, king of the interception, king of 15 different kids, never won anything. There's a lot of teams that are looking foolish in the wake of what Tom Brady's done this year.
Do you know who looks the most foolish? And the more and more I think about it, the more foolish I think they are. The Chargers. I wanted him to go to the Chargers. I thought they were the most balanced team that were a Tom Brady away from winning a chip. Now that we know what Justin Herbert is, if that guy got a year or two to sit behind Brady, because you're going to a chip with Brady on the Chargers this year. Throw it into Keenan. I mean, Keenan Allen is an 18 reception a game guy in the slot for Tom Brady. I mean, that connection would have been magical. It's what him and Godwin should have been if Godwin had brought his hands into this season. I don't know what's going on there. But him to L.A. would have been phenomenal. And I think they're dumb for not, again, because you're not paying Herbert anything right now. So why not give him that experience? Why not give him the Tom Brady experience for your culture, for your team?
Yeah, I honestly thought that Tom Brady, I thought that was the most likely move, that he was to go to the Chargers. You see, it seemed like they had a pretty good offense, some pretty good pass catchers coming out. I mean, Brady has always played with a great pass-catching running back, or, your Kevin Falks, your James Whites, all that. He's going to team up with Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen. They have a pretty solid defense there. And obviously the fact that they were in L.A., it just seemed like there was
Would have been good for TB12 too.
would have been great for the TB. It would have been great for Giselle. I'm sure she would have loved that. And we know that's a big factor in where Brady ends up. So Brian Saffron saying Godwin has been injured all season, Frank. I'm going to agree with Frank, though. I mean, Godwin, for the games that he has played, he's got to come up with some of those balls. A couple of those throws that Brady had early. See, I mean, that's one of the things that amazes me is just how cool some of these guys can say. It's like a playoff game against Green Bay, and your guys drop the first, 3 passes that game. I'd be going ballistic, and Brady just sits back there. All right, we'll punt it away. Nobody's catching anything. It just plays, calm as a cucumber. But yeah, I just feel like Godwin obviously just didn't have the hands that he should this year. But it seemed like Brady probably should have ended up on a team like L.A. I think Tampa was one of the least likely teams. They really came out of nowhere at the last minute. And it seems like they're one of those teams that was there for Brady at midnight. Like we talk about these teams that make the push at the last second.
Bart Starr.
I think they showed him the love and affection that he want. They were willing to give him the 2-year contract. I don't think there were many teams that were actually willing to give him more than a 1-year commitment.
The second year was huge. The input in the offense was huge. And those are 2 huge reasons why he left here. Those are the 2 biggest reasons he left here. Wasn't even necessarily supporting cast. It was his goddamn contract. And I mean length and money. The 2 biggest reasons he left were length of contract and money. I'm sick of having he came off an MVP season and a Super Bowl and they didn't extend him. I get his frustration. He still mailed it in. It's okay to say it. It's okay. He mailed
with a
it
12-4 season, throwing 24 touchdowns with a team that what did Cam Newton throw? 5 touchdown passes.
Okay, well,
to
what's
the
a
same
goon
players,
to a goblin?
basically?
Tom Brady's the GOAT. It's not comparable. It's not even apples to apples. But listen, when you are Tom Brady and you stop buying in, it becomes a problem. If Tim Duncan one day decided, I'm not going to believe in Popovich's system, the Spurs would have looked a little bit different. We looked a little bit different. The idea that there's a circle of trucks, Fokker, and Jacoby Myers can't get in, and N'Keal Harry can't get in, not because they're not good enough, though they're not great, but because I'm Tom Brady and I can't believe I've been put in this position. He got to a point in his career where I'm not getting paid and I can't believe you stuck me with kids. Which, by the way, is the exact same mentality as Belichick saying, "Oh, you made me trade Garoppolo? Screw you. When Brady leaves, we have nothing, and then I'll figure out what to do." It's the same hubris. It's the same arrogance.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like Brady last year. I just feel like you gave him nothing. You wouldn't pay him. It's like the guy won a Super Bowl.
They
and
did try to give him Antonio Brown. If Antonio Brown wasn't throwing furniture off the roof,
But they did that into the season. They waited until it looked that bad to bring in Antonio. They had no plan in the offseason. I get they did try to appease him during the season, but going into that year, I mean, come on. You do nothing?
No, they just missed. They did something. A first-round pick
They're
on
the
a wide
Patriots.
receiver.
They don't miss.
They did. First-round pick on a wide receiver went to N'Keal Harry. Had that pick been DK, you wouldn't have said, "Oh, they left him with nothing. They didn't try to get him anything." No, they missed on the pick. They tried to get him something, and they missed.
Sure. And I just feel like there was good reason for Brady to be bought out. He had taken the lowest amount of money for so long. He had played with nothing over the past couple of years. It's like, I'm at least giving you all this money back. At least give me some weapons. We actually have a clip from Stephen A. talking a little bit about that. Tom Brady making Bill Belichick look foolish. Belichick, the GM, of course, but making him look a little bit foolish in what he's done with Tampa Bay.
Well, no question about that. We forget that Bill Belichick passed up on Lamar Jackson to get Sony Michel. Think about what the New England Patriots would have looked like this year with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback instead of Cam Newton. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's really highlighted what Tom Brady was working with, what he was working against, what he didn't have available to him. And it also elevated his zest to depart because people were writing him off and assuming he was done. And what he was saying is, no, he ain't going to come out and say, I don't have much to work with. I'm strapped. I'm handcuffed. He ain't going to do that. He ain't going to throw his teammates under the bus like that. But that's clearly how he was feeling. And so to be in Tampa right now, heading to the Super Bowl. And by the way, they did it last night without Antonio Brown, who did not play. Scotty Miller is no joke. He's no Julian Edelman. He's no Danny Amendola.
No, he got afterburners.
This brother, what he wearing? It's a 4-3. This brother. I mean, he's their primary deep threat. It ain't Mike Evans. It ain't Chris Godwin. It damn sure ain't Gronk or Brady. It's him. So Scotty Miller is no joke. But in the end, what it comes down to is with him and the dudes that I just mentioned, Tom Brady has weapons. And when it came down to him, it was good enough to get you to a Super Bowl appearance in your first year with another team.
I want to say something.
So, I mean, Frankie, if they had given him something to play with, if they had not run things, in such a way that Rob Gronkowski doesn't even want to play for the franchise anymore, don't you think he would most likely be here doing similar things with the Patriots?
I don't think it had anything to do with supporting cast. He wants to play until he's 45, and he didn't want to keep asking for contracts. If they had given him 2 years at $50 million, he would have been here with a shitty supporting cast.
We have a comment that is getting a couple likes. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Frankie A. Smith has got 3 likes next to it. He is our own Stephen A. Smith.
Giving him too much credit.
But gotta love that. But yeah, I think that I think when you look back at it, there are just a whole host of reasons, and obviously we're going to be talking about this. If Bill Belichick doesn't see success, I mean, Brady's father came out and said that Belichick's on some type of hot seat, and that honestly made me laugh. I mean, Belichick's seat is never going to be hot. He could lose for 3 years straight. I mean, he could lose 48 straight games or whatever and still not be on a hot seat.
Shoot season is always open. You got to love it. Shoot season is always open. And Tom Sr., always good for a quote when his son's in the Super Bowl. Always good for a quote or two.
But with all this smoke, do you think that it is – obviously, Belichick does have an ego, and obviously he hears everything. Do you think this is going to motivate them to go out and spend a little dough at the quarterback position, or are they still going to cheap out and try to get somebody like your guy, Jimmy Garoppolo?
They're going to get Jimmy Garoppolo so that Bill can say, I told you so. The only way Bill can say, I told you so, is if he gets the guy he wanted back. And I think him getting to say, I told you so is important to him. I think I'd rather have Stafford. I'd rather have Cousins. I mean, there are several quarterbacks I'd rather have over Garoppolo. But I told you this last week. I watched it work. I have quarters of film.
For 2 games.
Sure. I have news for you. Jacoby Brissett won, 9 games in Indy? He would have won more here because we have a better infrastructure. So I think that matters. I think we have a better coach than Kyle Shanahan. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo, and for the record, one of the things that he's very bad at in that Shanahan system is turning the ball over. I think Bill coaches some of that out of him.
If we want to have anybody comment below who they think is better, Jacoby Brissett or Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm honestly ready to roll with a guy like Brissett over Garoppolo at this point.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, I just think
Poppycock.
Garoppolo is going to be in a body cast at some point. It's like the guy holds on to the ball too long, takes too long to make reads. I mean, he's just not good enough to get it done, I don't think. I don't think Bill Belichick is going to – sure, he was happy. He wanted to have a plan behind Brady, and he wanted to do that 4 or 5 years ago. Does he still want to mortgage his career on Jimmy Garoppolo, a guy who's hardly been able to do much? I mean, he got carried by a defense to the Super Bowl last year. He had no part in that. You brought up his record last week or whatever.
Because his winning percentage is like .650.
Is that his winning percentage?
I don't give a damn whose win percentage it is. When you've been in the league for 4 years and you win 3 games to every 4 games you play, yes, give me that. I don't care what your limitations are. If I have the best coach in the league, which is what I have almost at this point, as Brady just beats me over the head with it, may be wrong about. But if the coach is who I think he is, and it's the best coach ever, then a marginal quarterback, somebody who can throw more than 8 touchdown passes in a year, is going to yield you good results. And for the record, this team wasn't a 7-9 team. This is a 2-win team that won 7 games. Bill still had an effect on this team. If Garoppolo's here, that might be 10, 11 wins.
Oh, my God. You're going to make my head explode. Jimmy Garoppolo would have won 10 to 11 games.
Listen, we can argue about this in the offseason. I have one question. We're not going to bring up the Bills, I assume?
I was just going to say that there is another team in the Super Bowl as well, and we will talk about them. Was looking for a transition to do that, but go ahead, bring up your point regardless.
No, since I know we're not actually going to talk about them, Josh Allen has still done it. Every playoff game he has still done something incredibly stupid. Some ridiculous 20-yard sack, some throwing it over his head, some outrageous interception.
When are you going to stop hating on this guy?
No. He's outrageously talented. He's like Jay Cutler with wheels, and I love Jay Cutler, even though he's a loser. But Josh Allen does something lunkhead-ish, something dunderhead-ish every playoff game, something to keep an eye on. Look, I'm a big pro wrestling fan. Love comics. I love when the narrative's good. Love the entertainment industry. Always been a big fan of movies. I'm not sure you can write anything better in football than Brady Mahomes. This is football porn. This is either one guy becoming the all-time Super Bowl leader, having more rings than any one franchise, or this is a guy coming in and saying, hey, Brady, you're the only guy who ever won 2 Super Bowls in his first 4 years. I did it in 3. I'm D Ford lining up in the neutral zone away from having 3 in a row. And you weren't a prolific passer. You didn't throw for more than 4,000 yards until you had been in the league 6 years. My first year as a starter, I threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. I mean, what a narrative. I mean, this is good. This is good.
No, this is good. And, it is. We got a couple of people commenting along this saying, I'll be somewhat disappointed if the Super Bowl isn't down to the wire. Surprised the spread is only by 3. It seems like the Chiefs should definitely be the big favorite in this one. Brady has been an underdog a lot in these Super Bowls, for as many as he's won. Let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs. Obviously, they have a high-octane offense. They're playing with Travis Kelce, who just continues to, much to my chagrin, just killed all the Gronk records.
Well, I mean, when the Bills
want to be Gronk,
sure, but when the Bills' defensive strategy doesn't involve doubling Kelce or Hill, you're not going to win. That was a horrible effort put forth by everybody in that Bills franchise. Lovable organization, horrible game.
We also had a couple of people commenting that Frank was right on the fact that that they wouldn't have won 7 games without Belichick. I just don't see it. What did Belichick do that necessarily put this team to a 7-win spot?
He got guys that have no business being open. He had a defense that is literally entirely either transplants or draft picks. That was, I believe, a top 10 defense. I'd have to look it up. I wasn't aware you were going to ask me this question, but they were tops in defense. They moved the ball between the 20s with every single crap bag quarterback that they put in there. Hoyer was a great quarterback in between the 20s. Lost his head and shit his pants inside the 20s. But Cam Newton was able to move the ball. Battered, washed Cam Newton was able to move the ball.
He was not able to move the ball.
Yes, he was. He fumbled the ball inside the red zone. He threw picks over the 50-yard line. He had more turnovers on the opponent's side of the field than any other player in football this year. And that leads to them would have won more games. Again, if they had just had an average quarterback play, this team wins 10 games, and you can't tell me this roster is a 10-win roster. So it's got to be coaching.
Doesn't some of it go on the fact that Belichick was so foolish to take a guy like Cam Newton and think that he could be good? It's like I knew that Cam was washed going into the season. How does the greatest coach or the genius supposedly not know that?
Because he's a mediocre assessment of talent.
Yeah, well, I guess that just makes me worry about who he brings in next to be quarterback.
I prefer it not be a draft pick.
I pray to God that it's not Jimmy Garoppolo.
I prefer it not be a draft pick.
I prefer trade away all the draft picks because at this point we haven't taken a good one since 2013. So it's been a little while. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is just doing incredible things. As you mentioned, he's only a play away, and Max Kellerman has been very quick in all of his arguments to mention this. A play away, D Ford lining up offsides, away from being in his 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. It's crazy, though, with what Brady has done. If you win 4 straight Super Bowls, you still feel like you've got a long way to go to be able to catch what Brady's been doing. And Patrick Mahomes is just, he just makes it look so easy. He's like a quarterback that I feel like we've never really seen and we probably won't see for a long time.
The Cowboys had 2 different dynasties as part of their dynasty. Steelers had 2 different dynastic runs, a big one in the 70s, a lesser one in the Oddies. Tom Brady's just gone 20 straight years, that guy. 20 straight. No team has ever done this, and now that he's done it without the Patriots, Now no team's ever done this. Now it's just Tom. Now it's no longer the Patriots in their run. It's Tom.
All right, hold that thought, Frankie. We got one ringing through. We'll take it. Hi, you're live with Open Season. Who do we got?
We got Justin from Charlestown.
Oh,
Hey, buddy.
Oh God, I'm starting to sweat. Probably gonna take me to task.
No. You guys are talking about quarterbacks and who we should take. I've been on the show saying this, and I think the guy we need to go after is Stafford. Especially if we got $60+ million in cap space to get some additional weapons. I do not want them drafting 15 to get a quarterback like a Mac Jones type. I'd rather them get someone that could play linebacker or an edge player at that position or at that spot or an offensive tackle. I just feel like Mac Jones could be a good quarterback. I just feel like Belichick wants to win now, and you put some additional pieces around. Stafford's the guy, and I don't think you need to trade a ton of picks to get him. And he'll come in. He's a warrior. He plays through everything, and I think he's probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the past 10 years.
I don't know that I could say underrated, but he's good.
I definitely.
I was
just
going to say.
Go ahead.
I think Stafford, for whatever it is, never gets talked about when we're talking like top 10 quarterbacks. Obviously, he's always had good talent. Obviously, Calvin Johnson for probably a good part of his career, but
Brandon
he can make
Pettigrew.
a lot of the same throws that Rodgers can make. Unfortunately, he's been on the Detroit Lions and has had a new coach every 2 to 3 years that have all been garbage, and never had a good defense. So, and he's been in Aaron Rodgers' division his whole career. So, I just feel like Stafford could be that guy, and if you get him here, I definitely think we could at least go 10-6, maybe 11-5.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to agree with you as far as guys that they should target. I feel like Stafford would be a great guy to get here. I feel like he's always been a guy that's really kind of had the stone. You had mentioned that, you know, he's a really good quarterback that doesn't get talked about a lot. He's also up there all time in terms of fourth quarter comebacks, and I had actually watched a game this year where he came back against the Falcons. It's like he had like 52 seconds left and got them down the field for a touchdown. Obviously, that's the Falcons. Obviously, they're a dumpster fire. Go ahead, Frankie. You got your mouth open.
No, I was just going to say that's actually really indicative. Unlike Brady, you'll notice when you go back, if you look through a fine-tooth comb, and you can do this with a lot of things in sports, you'll find most of those comebacks are against the Falcons of the world. You'll find that he's been on bad teams who have been behind, and he just comes back and beats bad teams in that season. He's coming back to beat a 4-win team as a 5-win team. And again, I like Stafford. I think he's a great option. But a lot of those comebacks are against bad teams.
I do think he has a great arm, though. I do think he's never played with a good coach. And at the age of 32 at this point, I mean, 32 is like a baby, you know, at the quarterback position. I mean, most guys are playing to 41 at this point. You got to assume Rodgers is probably on pace to play to 41.
I think he's the only one.
I mean, you just saw Breeze do it. Go ahead.
If you look at Aaron Rodgers' career, his record against below 500 teams and above 500 teams, if you look at his stats, they're pretty subpar. I mean, obviously he's, you know, up until the past couple of years, he didn't really have much of a defense. But you saw him against the elite teams this year, and he's going to win the MVP. He's played unbelievable this year. But
he'll be the first to tell you that.
He'll be the first one.
I said he'll be the first to tell you that, too, in the clip we played earlier. Well, you know, I'm probably going to win the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy that's surefire every week is Mahomes at this point. But I just feel like Stafford, he doesn't get talked about a lot. And he has a ridiculous amount of talent. He could pick up this offense pretty quickly. The other thing is, you know, you'd have to make some changes at the wide receiver position, obviously, because he can't be throwing to N'Keal Harry and the crap that we have at offense. But, you know, with a lot of salary cap and with, you know, all the pressure on Bill after this bad season and Brady going to the Super Bowl, I just feel like this is one of those off seasons he, you know, spends a lot of money. Hopefully it's not on special teams guys and a punter. But, you know, I just, you know, the only thing is I want this year is for Belichick to not be in the draft room. I know that's never going to happen. I just really feel like if somebody else would use that number 15 pick, because I feel like if Bill has it, he'll trade down to the second round, what he always does, or pick a guy from like some D2 school and think
Rutgers.
he's, outsmart everybody.
Justin, I'd actually rather he have his dog Nike. We saw him on the big screen during the last draft. I'd rather have Nike in there instead of himself.
Hey, Nike made a good pick. I really do feel like that that the safety Duggar will be a good player. Unfortunately, I would have taken the middle linebacker that went to the Chargers of that pick, who I think is going to be a stud.
Right?
Yeah,
Kenneth?
he's
Yeah,
good.
he's good. He is
he's
good.
going to be a stud.
Yeah.
And watching our middle linebackers that run like they're running a quicksand.
Juwan Bentley's incredibly slow. He might be the slowest linebacker left in the entire league.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen some couple latest mock drafts, and the linebacker from Penn State some guys have him going to the Pats. I mean, he's the best linebacker in the draft.
Who,
I
Parsons?
just don't know much about Penn State. Parsons,
Parsons will not be there at 15. Listen, there's no doubt in my mind that this is that offseason. You lose Lawyer Malloy, and you win the last 7 games of the season, but you miss the playoffs. You go out, you get Rodney Harrison. You had no offense. You go out, you get Randy Moss. You trade Richard Seymour. You get pissed off that the Raiders go 8-8. You sign Adalius Thomas. You have the worst third down defense. You trade for Darrell Revis. You're pissed off that Aqib Talib won't come out of retirement. You sign Stephon Gilmore within the first hour of free agency. This is one of those off seasons. And quite frankly, we can only thank Brady for this. If Brady's one and done in the playoffs, whatever crap plan that Belichick's been going with, he sticks with. The fact that Brady's in the Super Bowl, win or lose, is nothing but good for us. It can't be anything but good for us with Bill's track record.
I don't even think it's Brady, man. I think it's Linda Holiday on her Twitter feed. You look at Belichick pissed off.
That was good.
Yeah.
I do feel like, and even Tony Romo said at the end of the Chiefs game, I don't know if you guys heard this, he said that he thinks the Pats will be in this game against the Chiefs next year.
Of course he did.
And
Wow.
he's usually spot on. I mean, he said Belichick's got $16 million in cap space. Granted, I think Hightower is going to retire. I think a lot of those guys that didn't play last year are going to retire, which is probably good because Hightower, I don't even know what he has left. But let's see what Belichick can do. And I've talked to Billy a good amount on the show talking about Belichick and sticking up for him. If this year, if we do not make the playoffs, I'm 100% on board with what Billy's been saying about Belichick versus Brady. I didn't think Brady was going to make the Super Bowl. I've been saying on the show for months. However,
You and me both.
typical Brady fashion, after Thanksgiving, he just turned it on, and that offense is clicking on all cylinders. And I really do think they will win the Super Bowl.
The 8 straight wins isn't the surprise. That was, if you looked at their schedule, they had the Saints twice early in the season. They had, I think, only the Chiefs were their only struggle late in the season, and they lost to them. They were always going to rail off something like 7 of their last 8, 7 of their last 9. It's winning on the road 3 straight games. It's beating Drew Brees, who apparently had a torn everything. Apparently he's got 11 cracked ribs and a torn labrum. Or was it labrum?
Sounds good enough to me.
It might have been
Dr. Bratica.
No, but it might have been collarbone. But either way, it's a ridiculous and that's why I'm happy that Aaron Rodgers is now talking about retirement, because Brady is not just beating these guys; he's defeating them. He's got 2 guys talking about retirement. He has been excellent.
Now, do you guys think though that Brady won those 2 games, or the defense is what won those 2 games?
I don't think I can continue to make this argument. I think Brady has an effect on every defense he's ever played for, and he's got to show you that now that he doesn't have a great defensive coach. Because I don't think that team – Devin White was always an incredibly talented player. He got a bunch of penalties and never played within a system until Tom Brady said, hey, idiot, I'm trying to accomplish something. Follow me. And that matters. I think what you're seeing from Devin White and certain players that were Carlton Davis, something like that, I think you're seeing what you saw from Malcolm Butler per se. I'm beginning to think that those types of things were less and less Bill, and they're more and more Tom. So yes, I think his defense has helped him, but I think he had an effect on how his defense is playing dramatically.
All right, Frankie, let the boy talk.
I was going to say, I think for the Super Bowl, I think the defense is what's going to win them the Super Bowl, because Eric Fisher's out, their left tackle, their right tackle's out, and this pass rush of the Bucs, their linebackers are everywhere. And I thought Jason Pierre-Paul was done, but apparently his 4 fingers can still maneuver around left tackles and get to the quarterback at ease. And now they have Vita Bayo, I forget his last name, the defensive tackle. He's back. Sue's playing well. they have a front seven that's the best, I think, potentially in the NFL. And they're going to put pressure on Mahomes all night. If they're smart, they play a Belichick-type defense and put their second corner on Hill and just have the safety over the top the entire game. And, obviously Kelsey is going to have a monster game, but I really feel like the defense is what's going to win in the games. And I think Mahomes might have an interception or a couple fumbles, but I really feel like it's going to be a closer game than people think, and I think the Bucs are going to come out on top.
Well, hell, Justin, we love that prediction over here. We appreciate you calling in, man. Some good stuff there. Before we let you go, just one last thing. You brought up a good point. They're probably going to have to bring in a quarterback and a wide receiver. I really think that they're going to have to bring in both and probably spend that with some of the money. Anybody you're looking at in terms of who they might bring in for a wide receiver?
I'm not sure who's available on the free agent market. I do think I could see them making a trading like a second-round pick or a third-round pick, kind of like they did with Moss back in the day, and they did with Wes Welker. I don't see them signing anybody. I think they're going to make a trade or two. My only hope and pray is that Matt Patricia is not the defensive coordinator next year. He's just a water boy because he was the worst defensive coordinator in the Patriots history.
He can't have the title.
I have no idea why he's even back. That really, he was awful, and it was so evident once Brian Flores took over, like blitzing and everything, how much that defense got better. Patricia needs to sit his fat ass and do something else because I do not want him on the sideline.
Justin, he's back because another team is paying him, and that is a staple of Bill Belichick coaches and underlings. Some other team is paying him, which is A, why he can't be the defensive coordinator, or that will take some of the money that he's being paid from Detroit. And
well, if he can't coach, what they should do? They should have him wear that Goodell T-shirt because there'll be no fans in the stands, and just zoom in on him the whole game, the jumbotron, pumping up the crowd. That's the only thing he can do that will work for us.
He'll be a consultant like McDaniels was after Denver.
Oh God,
gotta love it. Well, hey man, we appreciate you calling in tonight.
Yep, have a good show.
All right, you too. Have a good night. Care. All right, later. Yeah, so Justin brings up some good points there. I honestly, we were going to get to the Stafford stuff. I thought that was a nice little segue into that. He should definitely be a guy that's on the Patriots' radar as far as I'm concerned. I think that's going to probably touch on all the things for our Super Bowl coverage so far this week. I think we should move on to the NBA a little bit unless somebody else with this call. Oh, we don't have a call. All right.
With this call, Ivy Wood.
It always gets me excited. Somebody rang through and didn't go all the way through, Come on. So getting into it, obviously we have to say rest in peace. It's the 1 year, anniversary of Kobe and Gianna's passing, and now we have somebody. Oh, nope, Brian's shaking me off. This has been a little tough one. Maybe somebody's crank calling us over here. We'll take anything. So anyway, we've got to say rest in peace to Kobe and Gianna, the 1 year anniversary of that. Got Kobe up here for the show. But somebody kind of keeps calling in and hanging up. But sweet. I'm obviously focused, and we'll get through that. But anyway, LeBron James kind of turning back the clock last night. Anybody that saw his missed dunk last week was probably saying, oh, is that the first glimpse of LeBron maybe falling off a little bit? I know there were definitely some people that did that. He really turned back the clock and had a virtuoso performance last night, putting up 46 points, 21 in the fourth quarter, hitting 7 threes.
How many points did Cleveland have in the fourth quarter?
Less than LeBron.
They had 19. So that was 21-19 LeBron.
Yeah, it's always good when you score more than the other team in a quarter, I feel, right?
Kobe did it for 3.
And we actually have a clip from our buddy Colin Cowherd talking a little bit about LeBron and kind of how impressive that performance was.
He had a block shot that looked like his rookie year. And they beat the Cavs. Don't rip the Cavs. Cavs beat Brooklyn. Cavs got good young players. It was in Cleveland.
The block shot was unbelievable.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's the block. That's pretty that's pretty amazing. But here's my favorite part. When James was short on a three-pointer at the end of the third quarter, an unidentified Cavs executive celebrated. LeBron said, quote, "I felt he got a little too excited." LeBron then went out in the fourth quarter and outscored the entire Cavs team. There is a pettiness with Michael Jordan. There is a pettiness with LeBron James. Kobe had it. Brady has it. I kind of love. I mean, you saw that Michael Jordan documentary. How many times did he say, I took that personally? Mike, they burned your toast for breakfast. I took that personally. They're imaginary. They create mountains out of molehills. There's nothing really there. And it creates, because somebody clapped a little hard for LeBron. He's like, oh, yeah? Oh, you're happy for me to miss? Watch this. I'm going to outscore your entire franchise. LeBron joked about it, laughed about it, but was kind of serious about it after the game.
Yeah, and that just kind of talks about the fact I thought it was really impressive for a guy who's in his 18th year, for a guy who is 36 years young, to come out on a Monday in January and put up 46 points. To be able to take the leap that he's also taken in terms of his three-point ability, this is a guy that you used to back off. You used to say, okay, if he's going to play athletic against us, we can take that, and we can just force him to shoot. And it was almost like there was almost a formula to stopping LeBron early in his career. And he's really erased that. He's been a guy that's been able to hit. I mean, against the Celtics last year, he got down to the free throw line and hit a jumper at the end, just kind of had the ball in his hip, and you knew he was going to hit that shot. Hit 7 threes in the game last night, and I really thought that was probably the big takeaway for me. Obviously, the block was insane and something that he would have done as a rookie. The athleticism he showed to get up that high for that thing. I mean, that thing was probably 12 feet in the air when he hit that thing.
I mean, he almost hit his head on the rim. It was really athletic.
So it's amazing that he can still get up there, and it shows that the dunk that he missed the other night was probably just a fluke. But pretty impressive what he's doing in terms of being able to shoot. And the other thing that I'll say that I'm really impressed with is this should have been Anthony Davis's team last year. This team is still not Anthony Davis's team. It's still LeBron James. At this point, Anthony Davis, a top 5 skilled player in the league, and this is still LeBron's team. What was your biggest take from last night's game?
Well, the logo shot. It's the evolution of LeBron James's game. He was, I think, 7 of 13 last night, but I think the night before that he was 6 of 10. So it's just been a good year from distance for LeBron. And I got to phrase this the right way because I don't for one second think that he's a better three-point shooter than Jordan or Kobe. But there's a reason that his career three-point percentage is higher than both of them. He's a bigger threat because he shoots more comfortably from that distance because he made it a point to bring it to his repertoire. He understood that this is where the game is going. As soon as Steph Curry's little Davidson body is running around at 150 pounds, draining threes, he said, this is where the league is going. And since then, he's made a concerted effort, and you've seen it. And it's helped him stay great longer. You know what I mean? If he was still freight training his way to the basket, that groin injury is something you'd see more of. And the mid-range is something you saw. I think it was the 2015 finals, the last finals that he won against the Spurs. He really showed you because they were going under on every screen. And I remember that series. He just said, fine. And he took 22-foot jumpers, 18-foot jumpers, and he won that series. He won Game 6 and 7 with the mid-range jumper. And now what he's doing from 3 is just a nice little form of evolution. It is.
Yeah, and it just takes a guy. It's almost like with what Brady's kind of done in some regard. It's like he beats you with his mind. And LeBron, obviously, there's a lot of physical skill, a lot of things that he was born with that make him good, but he's also really had the mind to be able to beat people. And like you said, being on that next level, kind of figuring out. Larry Bird used to say every offseason he'd try to add something to his game, and I feel like LeBron's really been one of those guys that's successfully been able to do that, whether it's being able to get a little bit more comfortable shooting or making threes. He's really kind of seamlessly added this three-pointer to his game, and it definitely makes him pretty dangerous because he's such a physical freak, and being able to knock down 7 threes in a game, I mean, we never really saw Jordan. I mean, Kobe could get on his streak shoot, but Kobe needed to take 1,000,000 shots to be able to really get that good from 3, I feel like. He was more of a streak shooter.
Well, again, if Kobe had spent 2 off seasons doing to his game what LeBron has done to his game, I have no. That's when I say he's not a better three-point shooter than those 2 guys. That's what I mean. Is that when those 2 went back in the offseason and decided I'm going to learn some paint moves, they did that for 4 off seasons. LeBron did that for 2 off seasons and then decided I need to shoot for the next 4. If it had been a point of emphasis for either one, because they're both better shooters than LeBron. So if they had made shooting from distance a point of emphasis, they would have come back with a better shot than LeBron has, or could have, because they're better shooters. They're more natural scorers. But that's not, and I'm not saying that to disparage LeBron. I'm simply saying he's a higher career average on 3-pointers. He defenses come out and guard him from 3 more than they did Jordan or Kobe. He's not a better shooter, even from distance, than either one of them. But what he's done and how he's evolved is fantastic.
I mean, I'm going to say that he's a better 3-shooter than Michael, right?
Tell Michael that. Because he'll take it personally. And he'll have them at one of his camps, just like he did OJ Mayo. He'll shut the shit down. He'll say, let's shoot 100 threes. And he'll make more than LeBron. Because he will. He's a better shooter and a better scorer. And I get it. Like, hey, statistically, I have no argument. Because LeBron has played in the NBA longer, has hit more threes at a higher percentage. Game over. He's not a better shooter.
And I'm not saying he's necessarily a better shooter. Obviously, Jordan was a good, like, it doesn't even really make a lot of sense why Jordan wasn't a great 3-point shooter.
Because
he was
it wasn't
such
emphasized.
a good shooter from mid-range, and he was such a great free throw shooter. I mean, it seems like if he wanted to pick up a 3, it would have been pretty easy for him to do so. But I just feel like LeBron is a better 3-point. I mean, you'd be more confident in LeBron hitting a 3 than you would Michael, right?
I mean, you mean LeBron now. You mean LeBron at his best 3-pointer versus Jordan ever because you never saw it. I'm telling you, if I gave Jordan 4 weeks and I said, listen, I need you to hit X amount percentage from threes, he would have.
Yeah. I mean, you don't think he tried to add threes towards the end of his run in Washington? I mean, obviously he was a little bit older, but
I don't think he tried to do anything in Washington but make money. I don't think he was smoking cigars at halftime. He was verbally crippling, promising young talent on a team where he was part of the front office. I mean, I don't think Jordan wanted to do jack in Washington, but shoot. I don't think he cared one iota. I don't want to talk about Washington Jordan. It's because I'm such a Jordan fan, I can't really talk about Jordan on the Bullets. It's going to bring a bad side out of me.
Oh, God. Nick Smith is killing me for calling Kobe a streak shooter. I would definitely say that he was, though. He was somebody who needed to take a lot of shots. He needed to get a lot of volume to get going.
I think you have him confused with Allen Iverson. Kobe had, 2 shortcomings in his entire career. He had the 3 air balls in Utah, which was as a rookie, and he had 08 against our team. How could you blame him? Everything else, he came up money. Literally, first of all, Shaq was unstoppable. He's the driving force behind the first 3, yes, but he had foul trouble. Everybody's game plan was foul Shaq or get him to foul you. And there were games where in the third quarter, early on, Shaq went out. You know who carried a lot of those late games? Kobe, as a 20-year-old, as a 22-year-old. He didn't need to take, because when he wasn't taking a bunch of shots, he was still an unbelievable scorer. When he wasn't taking a bunch of, his rookie year when Eddie Jones was taking a bunch of shots, he was still a good scorer.
What do you mean, his rookie year?
Yes. When Eddie Jones was
when he averaged 7 points a game, he was a good scorer?
Yeah. Points per 40 minutes. That's the metric, or points per 32 minutes. It's the metric that all NBA statisticians use. Still had a good one. Still had a good PER his rookie year.
Well, we'd be talking all about Emmanuel quickly right now if it was all about points per 48 minutes. He's going nuts on the Knicks right now with his per 48 minutes scoring.
Listen. I see in the show rundown you have Knicks streaking. They're 9-8. They're not streaking.
Haven't they won 4 straight?
Yes, but they're barely 500. You don't get to streak.
Isn't
when
this
you're
the
bad.
best streak that they've had in the last 10 years?
I would call it 20, but that doesn't tall as midget. It doesn't make you. I'm sorry. Congrats. All
right, well, what about a streak that does probably mean something? The Jazz off to
it does.
An 8-game win streak.
I love it when you
and a lot of this being done after Shaq called out, so awkwardly during that post game. Donovan Mitchell.
What was that?
He's just like, I wanted to know you heard that. It's just like, okay.
That's what didn't make sense to me. I said it because I wanted you to hear it.
He's like,
call me.
He's like,
call me.
He's like, that's it.
Why would you say that on national television? It was weird. It came off weird. And I like Shaq's commentary generally. That came off very weird. I didn't like that at all. And not just because he's coming after my boy, but just because it was very weird. It didn't come off as natural. It was terrible.
But your boy, to his credit, has really been the driving force behind this streak. He's shooting over 50% from the field. He's averaging close to 28 points a game during this. And the Jazz are really the most prolific three-point shooting team over the past however many years. They're making a ridiculous clip of threes. How serious of a contender do you think they ultimately could be this year?
So here's my bottom line on the Jazz because I have enough of a sample size. I can now make full-on proclamations. I'm past hypothesis stages. Anyways, I really
go
think
for another one.
hypothesis stages. Thank you. I appreciate the last attempt. Last one's always the money. But listen, they have guys that shoot three-point shots at a great clip, but in the playoffs, they don't have guys that have quick enough releases to get it good. I think Joe Ingles is a great NBA player, great role player, but when the game shrinks and teams start to really get up in his ass, he cannot get his shot off. And he goes from being a 20-point scorer to a 12-point scorer. Big drop. Those are the things. Until they have even a Kyle Korver, until they have like elite three-point shooters, I think they're going to continue to struggle. Donovan Mitchell needs people to spread the floor or he'll have trouble because he's already in an offense with a big, tall French dude who can barely score outside of alley-oops. And I love Gobert. I think he's great in that system. But when Donovan can barely shoot threes and your big man really can't leave the paint, you need your other three players to be able to shoot threes. That's how this NBA works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree with you here. I just don't think the Jazz are going to be as serious as I just think there's a lot of teams that I would pick over them. It's a good story with what they have going on right now, but I don't view them as a serious contender. Did you happen to hear Shaq's comments the other night about Rudy Gobert? How he was kind of talking about how anybody who's 7 foot could basically average. And then they had Kenny Smith was like, there's been like 4,900 players in the history that have played in the NBA. You gotta love when Shaq just kind of goes off the cuff.
He sounds bitter.
It's never good.
Why do you sound so bitter? You were so good. There's no reason to be this angry. I just don't get it.
And then Barkley starts talking. How many championships you got, Chuck?
Well, first of all, Charles Barkley, because he's a moron and because he's known for not winning, he might be like the most underappreciated athlete of all time. I mean, at 6'4", he was an MVP candidate. He was an MVP. He took Jordan to the brink in '93, I believe it was, with Phoenix. I mean,
he was the best player on the Dream Team, which a lot of people never talk about.
Well, Carmelo was the best player on the Redeem Team, so who gives a fuck? It's not the same thing.
The Dream Team, though?
It's not the same thing.
He was averaging 18.
And he was playing Slovenia, and they were winning by 60. It's not that important. But again, he's looked at as a loser. There's a lot of rosters that Charles Barkley would have won with. He wasn't on many of them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I just think the funniest thing about Chuck, where he kind of contradicts himself, he gets on all these guys that chase championships. Was there not a guy that tried to chase championships more than Chuck? I mean, he leaves Philly to go to the Suns and chase there with their big three with KJ and Marley. And then he goes to Houston after that. And, I mean, it was just clear that I feel like he was definitely a guy that was trying to join the best teams, trying to join up with a lot of talent. He always talks about how you wouldn't have seen Larry Bird do this. Or I think that's one of the biggest things where he gets caught up in the wrong side of the argument. It's like, dude,
he's lying.
You were trying to join up with the best teams you could.
Do you know what those players are really saying? I wish I had done it earlier. Kevin Garnett has the most level-headed way about this because he was traded to Boston right at the end of his prime. And he says, I believe he still owns a house in Minnesota. He loves his time there. He wishes he left earlier. There is no amount of loyal a fan base can be when the organization just sucks. Like Larry Bird, if Boston wasn't effing the Celtics, yes, he would have left. Yes, he would have. Mark Aguirre left after winning a championship with Detroit. Like, Bob McAdoo went to L.A. as a former MVP to be a bench player because screw playing for the Buffalo Clippers. Like, no. Players have left and chased rings forever.
I totally agree, and you hear everybody bring this up, saying that Larry Bird would have never left Boston.
Yeah, he would.
Magic Johnson would have never left L.A. Yeah, Larry Bird was on the Celtics with, obviously he was on there with Parrish, with McHale, with all that talent, and obviously the talent that Magic Johnson was surrounded with too. I mean, it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Worthy.
Cooper,
it's like, yeah, you'd really want to shoot your way out of town quick when you've got 3 Hall of Famers on the team.
Byron Scott.
It's pretty easy to say when you're drafted to a team that's surrounded by that. So, yeah, I feel you, and I feel like we're definitely in a different NBA where the best guys really do kind of chase. I mean, we're seeing guys
But
like
even
LeBron,
the guys that are
like
talking
Durant.
about it chased. Shaq chased, Barkley chased. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, and that's okay. Like, this is the NBA. Nobody's mad at you. Wilt went to go play with Elgin Baylor and Jerry West, who's the logo. Like, what do you mean? Like, this has happened since forever. The Minneapolis, like, the Lakers and Celtics have, combined, I think, 34 championships. Make no mistake about it, about 20 of those were, like, against the Cincinnati Royals. Like, who cares? Like, what are we even talking about here? Super teams have been a thing since the 60s. Ring chasing has been a thing since the 70s, 80s. I mean, this is nothing new. And they're lying when they talk about it. And what they really mean is, I wish I had left earlier. Because if Barkley's telling you, I wish I stayed where I was at and I'm happier to not have had a ring, he's lying. He's lying.
I agree. We'll hit on a couple more points before we bring the show to a close. One thing I wanted to hit on that has been a little bit encouraging to me, Demarcus Cousins has had a tough year this year. Hasn't been getting a lot of minutes, has been slow to get back into it. But if you've paid any attention, the last 2 games, he's played over 30 minutes. He's had over 15 rebounds. Is Demarcus Cousins at age 30, is he still a viable threat? Do you think he'll have a good year this year? What's your read on what he's done on the last 2 games versus what he's done on the season?
I think as long as he can, and here's the problem, he's so lumbering. Like, even when he was good, he looked lumbering. I have no faith he's going to stay healthy. He's played 30 minutes, I think 2 straight games or 3 straight games. So if he plays 30 minutes, he'll be a productive NBA player. Even past his prime, even not that good. I have no doubt about that, but I don't think he'll stay very healthy. I do want to make one correction. Bob McAdoo, it was the Buffalo Braves before they became the Clippers.
Did somebody shoot you a text about that?
Of course I got shot a text.
I saw you looking at your phone. I'm like, my God.
Well,
somebody
sorry.
found that,
I knew it
but
was
it's like out of
Buffalo.
all the things you said, somebody brought up that correction.
Well, not many things I said were wrong if you were listening.
So quick Celtics note, it was 17 games off for Jason Tatum. Comes back and scores pretty well in his first game back. They put to waste a team in Cleveland that's been pretty good over the past, dismantling the Nets in a couple straight games. Pretty good to see Tatum out there shooting pretty well. The game kind of coming to him pretty easily after 17 days off. Didn't look like a lot of rust on him. What did you think?
The team will be better for him having missed time, as long as it doesn't become like 30 games. But other people, role players getting time will be good. I mean, now he's back. Pritchard's out. So, I mean, we'll see. But, look, I'm bullish on this team. I was bullish on this team preseason. I'm bullish on this team now. As long as we're healthy, and especially with Milwaukee falling back to the pack, and, the only team being head and shoulders better than us is a team that cannot guard us or anybody, it really bodes well for us, quite frankly.
And then, obviously, we'd be remiss if we didn't do the weekly Gordon Hayward check. Another 39-burger from him as he averages 24 points this season so far in 16 games. Really passing anything. I mean, he's probably scored more points for Charlotte than he did last year with the Celtics almost at this rate. Pretty incredible what he's doing in Charlotte, I'd say. 30 years old, coming off a couple bad injuries. I just didn't see him doing anything like this, and he's just been shooting the lights out.
I've never been happier for a player to not be on my team, and I've never been happier for a player to be playing well again. Like, this type of resurgence is what I kind of wish for Isaiah Thomas. Like, as annoying as he was by the time he left, boy, to watch him lose his sister, play well, tear his hip, and then never be good again is just horrible. And to see Gordon Hayward, this is why I'm like, hey, look, Paul George, I'll never feel that he's the assassin that I thought he could have been in Indiana, but it's nice to see him playing as well as he's playing this year. Like, seeing Gordon Hayward play this well is refreshing. It's awesome. You want to see guys playing at the peak of their abilities. He's slow. He struggles from range, but he's elite in his skills, dribbling, rebounding, passing. It's good to see him have enough playing time and command of the offense to really resurge.
Hey, you do bring up a good point there. It does feel like Paul George has never gotten back to really as scary as a player. When he was with the Pacers at like age 23, that was really the scariest Paul George there was. Did you happen to see Draymond Green getting the tech for yelling at James Wiseman?
It was rescinded, as I read. It was
rescinded.
Inevitably rescinded.
But that was such a Draymond Green thing to happen.
Yes.
Like, just the ultimate.
Look,
I love when Charles calls him out for averaging a triple single.
those are always funny. But look, Draymond Green, I know you don't agree with me. I think he was the most valuable player on those Warriors teams.
How good would he be, though, if he were to come to a team? I don't even know how you can say that, honestly, without cracking a smile.
Because I'm not overvaluing him as a player. I'm not all of a sudden. I never said he's a top 10 player in the league. For what that
so
team
that means
as
that
composed,
Curry and Clay were not top 10 players that year.
No, they were. But
so how can somebody
because they
be
can
more
go to any team and score 30, and that team may or may not win. What that team needed, what that Warriors team needed, was Draymond Green. Was somebody who could guard 1 through 5. Was somebody who could play point guard when those guys were not in the game. They absolutely needed every 110% of what Draymond Green brought. And because they're both probably, realistically, the first and second best shooter ever, they're complementary. They make up for some of what the other one does. None of them can do what Draymond does.
If Draymond Green were to happen to be in Boston for those years, how valuable would he have been?
He would have done nothing, but that's not the point. He's on a team with 2 of the best shooters ever. So he plays within the context of that team formula. That team needed a Draymond Green. They needed a versatile player who could play 1 through 5.
They didn't need a Steph Curry more than him, though?
As long as they had the other one, they need either one of them less than they need Draymond.
I mean, I could sit here with this all night, but we will not. We will refrain, and we appreciate everybody for hanging with us. We'll catch you next week, same time, same place, and maybe we'll spend a little bit of time on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I don't think we spent enough time on Tom. Is the thing.
All right, we'll catch you next week, everybody.
I'm just not sure that Kyler Murray is big enough. This is Tom Brady. He's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate I've got Bryan Murphy to my left, making sure everything's smooth, crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. He's the most overrated player. And there you are, the Chicago Bears with a champion season defense. And Mitch, I'm sure Dancing with the Stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion, that's your bad.